Today we're going to be going over some all-day powerhouse fragrances that are not going to leave you hanging. This is pretty much everybody's worst nightmare. It's one of the #1 complaints people have with most fragrance releases out there, and that's lack of performance. You spray something on before you go to school or to work, and then it quits on you, 4 or 5 hours in, or sometimes even sooner than that. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of what you're setting out to do when you're applying that cologne, and that would be to, at the bare minimum, at least smell good to people around you and maybe turn some heads and, get some positive feedback here and there. And one of the main things, people will present to you as kind of like a solution to that would be to carry around a decant or the full bottle and reapply at lunchtime. How many people want to do that? Not very many. Especially if you work a job where it's fast-paced and you don't have time to do something like that. You don't even think about it. You don't have to with the releases in this video. So these are just going to work well for you. Now it's going to be up to you to decide which one of these suits you best in terms of your personality, your taste, everything like that. I'm just laying it out there though. These are all good performers that are just going to go through the entire day and you just don't have to worry about it and you can't beat that. So the first one is Dior Sauvage Parfum, okay? Now a little bit of a strategic pick here because the obvious choice would have been Sauvage Elixir right now just because it's kind of the newest one on the block that's been getting the most hype by far. And that one is great and it is a beast mode performer. However, going back to what I was saying a minute ago, as far as finding something that works the best for you and is something that you're really gonna like, Sauvage Elixir is a little bit more specific. So not everybody's going to like that one the same way as you might Sauvage Parfum, which is just a bit easier to pull off in general, given that it's leaning into that Sauvage DNA further. Elixir really kind of gets away from it, focuses a lot on the woods and the spices and things like that, whereas this one is more mainstream Sauvage, but just with a little bit more of a masculine and kind of grown-up twist to it. So I think this would be a great option for you, if you want something that's still going to be easy to pull off, versatile, and a big compliment getter with that amazing performance. This one is going to pretty consistently give you around, 10 plus hours. At least it does for me. Your mileage may vary, of course, but 10 plus is kind of where you'll see this one a lot. And oftentimes it may make it further than that. Next up, we have Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Eau de Parfum. Love this stuff. I would say this and the Extreme are two of the best releases within this lineup. So as far as it goes between those two, both are great performers. Both could be slotted into this video. Just take your pick, whichever one you prefer. Again, for me, I love them both. To be fair, I love the entire lineup pretty much, but I can only really choose one for the video without it just being repetitive. So I decided to select the EDP. But again, you can do some testing, do some sampling and see which one you prefer, or you can get them both. You might as well just buy the entire line while you're at it, right? Because you probably will eventually if you're someone who has caught the collecting bug like a lot of us have. But this one is a really nice mixture of cherry, some almond, a little bit of tonka bean in here. Smells fantastic. And the almond note is what is iconic for this lineup, but that fruity cherry sweetness with that powdery tonka bean, it smells phenomenal. This one really is something special. It's something unique. And ultimately, as far as your age range or your kind of who's going to be gravitating towards more with this one, you really can't go wrong with this if you're just after something unique and something different at the end of the day. Sauvage Parfum, for example, that's probably a little bit more mainstream and maybe kind of boring to some, but this is interesting. Next up, we have Mancera Tonka Cola. This is one of their better new releases within the past several years. In Mancera, they put out quite a few fragrances, 1 to 2 a year, it seems like. And they've also started up some flankers as well. So start off with Intense Cedrat-Boisé, and then they have Intense Red Tobacco, and I think that's it so far, isn't it, flanker-wise? I'm sure they're going to continue, probably Intense Oud Lemon Mint, and just all the other best sellers. I'm sure they're going to get a Parfum flanker. Tonka Cola probably down the road as well, getting ahead of ourselves, but This one's fantastic. You know, this kind of gets compared to Roja Enigma, Creation E, and this would be Mancera's take on that style. However, it's not a clone. So there are quite a few differences. There are enough differences to where it's not a clone, but definitely probably inspired by. Just like every brand out there has some form of iris scent or leather scent or blue ambroxan fragrance, a lot of brands have some sort of kind of boozy, sweeter nighttime scent as well, and that's kind of what this one does. Although it doesn't really have the same type of booziness that Enigma has, rather it does have that cola smell, kind of fizzy smell, and just a little bit of that fruity sweetness. This stuff smells delicious. And yeah, no surprise, in typical Mancera fashion, it's a beast mode product as well. I mean, this stuff will go 12 plus hours. Yeah, I guess it's also worth mentioning that Intense Bois-A, Intense Red Tobacco EDP also could have been in this video as well. There's a lot of options out there. You just got to sift through and find what you want. Next up, we have Armani Code Eau de Parfum. So again, at one point it would have been Code Absolute, Code Profumo, you know, being placed in this video. I would love to feature those. In fact, as I was putting this one together, I was looking at my bottles of Code Profumo and Code Absolute, and I was like, yeah, you know, I really wish I could feature those. But as you guys know, those are no longer in production, and I try not to do that. If something is not being, you know, made anymore, it's been discontinued, you can't get it, I don't feature it anymore because it's kind of like, what's the point if you can't buy it? So at this point, you're really left with Armani Code EDT, EDP, or the Parfum, and that's it as far as in production. In my opinion, you could skip the EDT entirely. I know they re-released it in that new bottle, and I have it. It's, you know, scent-wise, not a whole lot of a difference between this style bottle and the new EDT, okay? You know, just a bottle change. They're refillable now, but you don't really need it, okay? So if you're wanting Armani Code, go for either the Eau de Parfum or the Parfum. Both of these are great performers. Both of them are great scents. What I like about the EDP is it's kind of focusing in on a bit more suede and vanilla alongside that very forward tonka bean structure that is, of course, found in the Eau de Toilette. That's kind of what pioneered that particular style for this line. And so that's essentially what it is. It's just kind of a more modern take on the EDT, but just better performing. Let's go for another flanker because that's kind of what everything is these days. It seems like we're getting more new flankers than more just new lines. And I'm okay with that, honestly. It's Eros Parfum. You know, there's always room for improvement in pretty much everything, right? And how much of it is based off of consumer feedback when it comes to fragrances, I don't really know. I'm guessing probably not a whole lot at all. But it does seem as though as you go down the list or down the line, starting off with the original, then you get an EDP and an Eau Fraiche and a Parfum and an Elixir now, they do seem to be getting better in some instances. Now, sometimes it's hard to beat the original, that's the best, and they go downhill. But for some of these brands and lines in particular, they have done a good job of turning things around and making them better and more interesting. And in the case of Eros Parfum, it's the simple fact of returning that beast mode Eros EDT performance that is no longer, but it used to be. We have it back with the Parfum and also just a little bit more of a modern, mature smell to it. I love this one. It smells great. Not quite as overly sweet and minty as the original, which can be a bit cloying sometimes. And I also really like Eros Flame. It's another great performer, another great scent to have around, but the Parfum is going to beat that one out a little bit in terms of performance overall. Next up, we have Prada L'Homme Intense. In my opinion, the best Prada L'Homme fragrance ever, really. I was going to say the best flanker, but to me it's even better than the original, which isn't a flanker, of course, the original Prada L'Homme. At the end of the day, if I only had to choose one, or I was only able to choose one and I had to forfeit the rest, I would take Prada L'Homme, I would get rid of all of the other ones. I would take Prada L'Homme Intense and I would get rid of all of the others. Why is that? It's simply because Prada L'Homme Intense is more interesting, has more depth and complexity compared to the others, and also it's better performing than the others by a pretty significant margin. So let's just break it down easily. Not that there's a whole lot to go over, but Prada L'Homme Original EDT, it's a bestseller, and I'm not saying that it's bad. It's great, but performance is going to be a little bit more kind of just down the middle, average, nothing to write home about in either direction. Very versatile, definitely fresh, soapy, and that sort of thing. Prada L'Homme Low and Water Splash can kind of be combined together. They're the fresher version that performs okay, and again, I like those, but they're not going to hold a candle to something like this in terms of performance. And then the discontinued Prada L'Homme Absolute, pretty good, but again, it's discontinued. So that just kind of leaves Prada L'Homme Intense for me in terms of just being my ultimate favorite, especially when you look at the pricing, which isn't a whole lot more than the original at the end of the day. When we're talking discounted prices, this one is typically $20, maybe $25 more. Some, that might be a breaking point. That might just be where, yeah, they don't want to go there. But for me, it's like, it's worth it. It makes sense because that extra 25 bucks is going to get me a product that I'm just going to be a lot more excited to wear overall, and it's going to perform better. Next up, we have good old Azzaro Wanted. Yeah, I haven't talked about this guy in forever, just the eau de toilette, where it all started. So as far as my favorites go, it's Wanted by Night, the most wanted parfum. Love them. Those could also be in this video. The issue is, I have talked about those a lot. And so, you know, sometimes that can be a little bit obvious. And I wanted to throw in an option that still is very relevant, still an option that would be great, that's more affordable, and that's Wanted, the original eau de toilette. Again, scent-wise, I am not the biggest fan of it. It's never been one that I've really enjoyed. I think all of the flankers smell better. However, this one still does have phenomenal performance, especially for the price, and that's what this video is about. This isn't a video titled, you know, my favorite fragrances ever, my favorite smelling, most masterpiece crafted scents, right? That's not what this is about. It's about good performance, and this one does that. Despite whether I love it or not, it works. And, I mean, again, to go back to it, it's just a bit more affordable. Speaking of affordable, we have Rochas Man Intense. So a flanker that I wasn't expecting to see, just based upon all of the other huge designer brands pumping out flankers all the time. It's kind of a battle of relevancy at this point, and it has been for a while. It's not like this just started. Whichever big brand can stay in the spotlight the most by putting out a new eye-catching flanker every year wins in one way or another in terms of sales volume and just eyeballs on the brand, right? So your Dior, YSL, Gucci, Hugo Boss, no Chanel, right? But things like that. Rochas, they're kind of not doing the same type of thing. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, they do have some great fragrances. Rochas Mustache EDP, I love it. Then you have Rochas L'Homme, love it. Rochas Man, the original, great coffee scent. The Intense is even better. It's just better performing, richer, heavier, darker, stronger. Again, for someone who loves coffee like me, this is about everything I would look for. It's not as much of an earthy roasted coffee, rather more of a lighter, creamier, milkier cappuccino coffee, which I like just depending on what mood I'm in. It's a great performer. It's going to get you through the day, especially in the cooler times of the year when you're craving something like that. And we're going to finish this one off with Gucci Guilty Absolute. So yeah, Gucci, you know, we just brought them up, a brand that is putting out the flankers pretty consistently. And, you know, of course, they're focusing on the Guilty line because, well, it's been around forever and, you know, kind of what do you expect? And they do have some really good releases within this line. Now, they don't have any Gucci envy or anything like that anymore, you know, something that was truly remarkable. We don't have that, but we do have some good gems, and this is one of them. Kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about like the Guerlain compared to Sauvage or something. This is just going to be unique, interesting, and different. Very leathery, very woodsy. Smells like a truly masculine scent, completely different than what's being released today. And this one takes it to the extreme in terms of the leather and the woody notes and cypress and everything about it. So blind buy wise, it's a little bit more risky. I think for the most part, you could probably walk into some retailers and smell this, although I don't know. I don't have any near me and I don't go in them. So I don't know if they're really stocking this one as much as they would the others these days. But if not, you can buy a sample online or whatever. Again, be cautious with this one because it's not for everybody, but it will be something to look into if you want something unique and good performing. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Some strong performing fragrances that will not leave you hanging halfway through the day. I'll link these down below. And look, here's the deal. New releases, they're expensive. Why Elixir, Les Beaux Paradise Garden, all of these new fragrance releases, and especially the Elixirs, they are getting expensive. However, they have also been hitting discounters at a rate quicker than has ever happened before. Like when I was first starting out, going on 7 years ago, it would take months for a new release to hit discounter, sometimes even over a year. And that has been kind of shifting within the past few years. Some of these new releases have been hitting discounters before they've hit retailers here in the US, which is pretty crazy. So if you want to be the first to know when things like Paradise Garden, Y Elixir, Hugo Boss The Scent Elixir, the new Acqua di Gio Profondo Parfum, and so many more come into stock below retail, jump on my mailing list and texting list down below, and I will send you a notification as soon as they pop up. Also, with rare, discontinued fragrances or good deals, I send out notifications as well. Just this week, La Nuit Bleu Electrique came into stock. We had Light Blue Forever, Light Blue Italian Love, and then just today we had Tom Ford Pour Homme for 60 bucks. I've never seen a Tom Ford that far below $100. So that's a great deal, and that one sold out in the blink of an eye after I sent out my notification. So jump on there, you don't want to miss out. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.